Hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to the architecture of Cyberpunk 2077. Alright, let's go walk around the city, right? So we're gonna start with Little China in Watson. So the game calls them districts and sub-districts, which I find a little awkward. I'm gonna call it like region, the Watson region, and then the Little China district. So anyway, let me just show you in the map. So like over here, like this thing is Watson, and then within Watson we have Little China there. Within those boundaries. Alright. So Watson as a whole, it used to be a bustling district. There's an industrial area to the north, and then residential and commercial stuff to the south. And everything was going great until the megacorps moved in over there. And the megacorps basically took over all the industry. Or, you know, they brought in cheap imports and they ruined the industry. And so the whole industrial district, I can just try and cross the room without being run over. The whole industrial district is either taken over by the corps or abandoned. And after the decline of the industrial area, Watson, Little China and Kabuki, let me just stand here. Little China and Kabuki's down there, Little Watson's back there. So the economic situation declined afterwards, and the district became a poor district, relatively speaking, in comparison to the other districts of the city, right? So it used to be a growing economy, and then the corps moved in and the industry collapsed and the economy declined, and the corporations are kind of trying to muscle in and buy up the cheap property and expand their way into here. So the corps, they're accused of deliberately suppressing the real estate prices in the area so they can buy things up for cheap. So instead of like paying a fair price and all that, they deliberately tank the economy, make people poor, drive people out of their homes, and then they take over. That's in the process of happening. If we look over that way, you can see, well, we can kind of see. There's like shinier towers there, and it kind of just gradually fades into the industrial district to the north there. Although this is Kabuki in front, behind this Little China. So we're gonna go. Let's go over there. Alright, let me just run back this way. So on this side, this is Kabuki. I should probably talk about this. RCS is... what does that say? Riviere Courier Services. So this is a transport company. And you see how that overhangs the areas below? So that large platform up there, I believe, is a landing pad for aerial transport. Remember how I said last video that there are flying vehicles in the game? So most of the transports in the future... oh, there you go, we have flying cars up there. So there's flying transports, and that's where the rich people move things around. Anyway, that's a different thing. Okay, so Little China, as we said, so see this thing here, this is a corporate tower, right? They're stretching across from Corpo Plaza over on the city center. So the corpos, the big corporations, are reaching out, bridging across, and reaching out here. But they don't get too much further than that. If we look down below, like there are smaller buildings, and then there are bigger, like there are buildings on top of the smaller buildings. So basically you have corporations coming in and building their own stuff over the top of the existing buildings. And that one is like a new building being attached to the side of the old building there. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? So the corporals are coming in and just building over the top of the existing city. Like there's an old city where Little China used to be, and then the new stuff coming in and just covering the top of it. It's pretty wild. Alright, so in real life, you wouldn't do this. In real life, you would just buy the whole land, demolish the old building, and just build a new building. That's a sensible thing to do. but it's less dramatic, right?
I'm busy.
That story is less dramatic than people literally building on top of your building. It's a little silly, but also kind of cool. Right, like that there, like that fancy stuff up there, and that bridges across there. So that stuff just bridges across over the top of everything. And then these smaller buildings down here. It's actually not that simple, by the way. So like architecture, right? When you design a building, you design the structure to hold up a certain amount of weight, right? If you have a 10-story building, you have columns that are strong enough to hold up 10 stories. Like, you wouldn't put in extra columns, because why would you? So if somebody else wants to put something on top of your building, that's more weight. If they add an extra 5 stories on top of your 10-story building, your columns aren't going to hold them up. Your columns are going to collapse under the weight, because that's not what you designed it for. And so if you want to do that, you really need to put a structure, you need to put additional structure to hold up the extra weight. And that's kind of what that is, like that thing there. Like if you imagine you put an extra steel frame around the old building and the steel frame provides extra support to hold up the building above, that would make sense. But if we were doing that, we would need a lot more of it. Like that's not enough, right? We need like a whole big steel frame over the top of the existing building, and then that would make sense. There's a little bit back here actually, let me just look at that. Maybe this? Okay, there we go. Can I run across here without being run over? Alright, let me just hop over here. So you see that there? Oh, there you go. See how there's the old building there, and then there's a big steel column added to the side of it, and then that holds up the building above. See, that's what I'm talking about. Because this building, the columns inside this building would not be strong enough to hold up the extra weight, so they did put in extra columns to do that. Although having said that, I would expect there to be more columns than just this. But they put it in, alright? They understand what's going on. Very interesting. Also extremely impractical, because as I said, it would be much cheaper to just demolish the whole thing and build a whole new building. But very fun, very cool. Alright, let me run back across. So I'm gonna stay on this side of the road and just look at Little China, which is on that side. This is Kabuki, this is Little China there. Right. Moving forward. And you can see how the additional stuff continues across the top of there. It's a little bit disjointed though. Remember, the corpos are moving in from the south and expanding north, right? So as we go further north, there's fewer of these corporal buildings because they haven't quite gotten that far, right? So the corporal takeover of Little China is an ongoing thing. If we come across here and take another look, I mean that's super weird. So here the bridge doesn't quite span across there, and then this is really weird. There's like a building there, a frame, a few more things there, and then another shape behind. I'm not sure what to make of this. It doesn't look like a... It doesn't look that expensive. That looks more expensive, with all the diagonals and everything. That looks more organic. I mean, that just looks like people building on top of each other. Extremely odd. I'm not 100% sure how to read that. But it could just be, you know, overcrowding, and so people decide to add more and more buildings on top. Usually it doesn't happen at this scale, because if you can afford to do that, you could afford to build a new building, right? So when you have you know, improvised additions to buildings, usually it's like balconies, and then you enclose the balcony to try and get an extra room. Or if you have like an existing building, you add one extra floor on top, and that's about as much as you can do with improvising additions to buildings, because as I said, the structure is really not designed to support it. Here, what is this? Like we have that, and then we have a frame around the edge, and then that, and then we have that, and I'm guessing there's more structure inside there. And then there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different styles all stacked on top of each other. And as I said, like, if you can afford to do that, because like, how would you build that on top, right? You would need a big crane. A big crane to take the materials up and then to build the thing. See, once you start putting in big cranes, you have enough money to be able to afford to rebuild the whole thing. Like adding all of that on top is not gonna be cheaper than just demolishing the whole thing and building a new tower. So like economically this really doesn't make any sense, but you know, conceptually it's kind of cool, right? Just imagine the whole city is just people building on top of each other. It's a lot more like a jungle. You know, like in a jungle you have trees growing on trees, like in a like a rainforest. You have like plants growing on other plants, and then everything becomes very messy. So like, you know, in organic things, in organic ecosystems, this sort of thing happens a lot. It just doesn't happen in cities because it's like it's more difficult than just building a new tower completely. And then moving ahead, oh look at that one. Can we get closer? Let's get up on top of this thing. Let's go ahead and get up this staircase. So a little bit further ahead we have these towers. Those are interesting, look at that. There's two, it looks like they're residential towers with a separate elevator shaft and staircase. Right, that's cool. And you have like bridges over to the main tower. So that's interesting. Not sure how that elevator shaft connects into inside that building though. If that is an older building that's being, you know, straddled on top of. But this is more reasonable in terms of what you'd expect if you have gentrification going on, if you have like rich people coming in to a poor neighborhood and building new buildings. It'd be more like this, like a proper tower that goes all the way up and not adding on top of things. Right, so you have a shiny residential towers on top of older buildings. How do I get down from here? Alright, there's a staircase down, and then here we have more building, and then there's like a horizontal black couple of stories over the top. Let me just step back, take a look at it. Oh, look at that, there's even a big logo up there. What does that say? The Amber Fox. Interesting. Did they put a hotel on top of other people's apartments? Is that what happened? Amber Fox is like a hotel, right? Maybe it's a club or something. But you can see that there's like two horizontal black floors put on top of the existing buildings. Very interesting. Let's go back downstairs. And as we get further and further north, oh hey, there's a little market here. Not that there's much market activity happening right now. It's kind of dead, isn't it? I guess we should look at these. I mean, there are small businesses. So this is kind of interesting to note. Small businesses in the city, like, you know, if you want to look at whether the economy is doing well in the city, you look for things like new constructions. If there's construction sites or if buildings are being renovated, it means the economy is doing relatively well because people can afford to renovate buildings. And if there's a lot of small business, a lot of small shops open, it means there's a lot of money in the economy and people can support those businesses. Like if all the shops are shut, obviously the economy is bad. And if all the buildings are old and no new buildings are being constructed, then also the economy is bad. And possibly the population is also shrinking if there's no new buildings, right? So there's a few shops here, although things are not as lively as you might hope. But not that many new buildings going up. And then as we move further to the north, things kind of just start fading out. Because I said the industrial district is over that way, and you can kind of see some of the factories over there. There's a bit of a security barrier, a makeshift security barrier set up here. Possibly there's security issues, gang issues. This game, there are gangs in each of the districts. So crime is a problem in Night City. What's going on there? It's just plants growing out of the broken pavement. Yeah, so as we go further towards the industrial district, things get worse and worse, right? The buildings also get shorter. So as we said, we step down from the corpo center and we're all the way down to a 3-story building here, although there's a slightly bigger one back there. And then that way is industry, right? So I think we should turn in here. We're almost at the northern edge of Little China. Let's come back here through these back streets. And then we get to this thing. Let's get out. Let's cross the road. So one of the major landmarks of Little China is the MedCenter. There it is, MedCenter. Nice City MedCenter. Which is that thing. I think I've reached across the road. So this is a hospital. Isn't that cool? Big white hospital. Well connected to the infrastructure, so we have a monorail going straight to the MedCenter, and that's a highway up there as well. I don't know if it stops at the MedCenter, but down here we have the ground floor entrances, and in front of the MedCenter a big open square. So this is actually quite unusual in Night City. The idea of a hospital that's open to the public with a public square in front of it. But this is not what it is, because this is, in the past, that's what this is. In the past, this was a major public hospital, and it was done back when people still believed in public services in Night City. These days, the Night City has been taken over by Trauma Team. Trauma Team is a private medical provider who only provides medical services to those who can pay. And as you might imagine, prices are expensive for Trauma Team coverage. So I don't think the MedCenter actually is open to the public anymore, and as you can see, the public square down here is not in a good state, to put it mildly. There's rubbish and graffiti everywhere. At least the trees are still alive. Yeah, so this is a... Once upon a time, this was a public service, but no longer. I'm surprised that the square is still mostly empty. You can imagine like people just camping out here or something, homeless people. If we come down here, look at this. How wide these roads are. Big overhang, you come in here. Like, this is designed for a lot of people to come through. Look at all these roads. So it's designed for high traffic throughput. If a lot of people need to come to the hospital. And then we get to... Ah! Hey! I was crossing the road, asshole! Alright, so try not to get run over too much. And then you get to the entrance, and unfortunately these days the entrance do not open. They don't open on the ground floor, so no more hospital for the public. But if you're rich, you get Trauma Team coverage, and they'll fly you in on flying ambulances. There is a public transit station there. Yeah. So that's the MedCenter. It used to be a public hospital. In the game, or in the story, these days, if you want medical attention, you go to Ripper Docs. They're clinics that can also do surgery, that can also do cybernetics. And they may or may not be qualified and licensed. They may or may not have proper medical services. Alright. Around the MedCenter, oh, there's that thing too. Is this, like, this thing going around the MedCenter? Not sure what that's about. Because this black thing underneath here, it forms a bit of a barrier around the MedCenter. I'm not sure why they chose to do that for the game. Maybe it's just to, like, visually separate the MedCenter from the rest of the district. Anyway, so you see that there? So there's a big corpo tower extending all the way across the district, across the top of the district. Back there. But we'll go underneath it soon enough. So here, we can kind of see Mega Building number 10 back there. If I go that way, we'll go back to where we started the game. But since we started there, and we've seen that already, I'm going to continue going, continue going west for a couple of streets. Alright, we're gonna go this way. Actually, let me just peek over here, make sure we're not missing anything. Let's give you a look. And what's going on here? To get run over. Yeah, homelessness. Right, we have people camping out. So there's Mega Building 10. And it's mostly just the streets, nothing remarkable. Yeah, no, nothing remarkable. Alright, going that way towards the ginormous bridging structure over the top of Little China.
Spare a veteran some change.
Oh yeah, the layered roads again. Remember how I said everything is stacked up in layers because the roads did not expect so much traffic? We should get up here, I guess. Alright, look at that. So we have the big bridging there, the smaller bridges down here. So the corpos coming in, taking over buildings, building their bridges, completely ignoring the street and just going over the top of all the people who live in Little China. I mean, you can see it, like, eventually this is gonna cover everything, right? Eventually the whole street, the whole ground level is gonna be covered by buildings and then you can't see the sky anymore. And you'll be living in an undercity underneath the rich corpos above you. So we are like in the middle of the corpo takeover. If we get to the other side of this freeway above us, just take a look. There's the MedCenter back there. Yeah, interesting they chose to put this black strip around the MedCenter so you can't see it from a distance. Maybe it's like a sort of a fortress. Since the MedCenter's been taken over by Trauma Team, maybe they just put it here to cut it off from the rest of the city. Look at the size of that thing behind this stuff. Like, this is a normal building, and then there's that. There's the mega corporations back there. Insane, right? Like, it goes over the top of everything. Okay, down the stairs. And I guess I should cross the road. Look at this. Like, this juxtaposition between like these smaller buildings and that massive one up there. Like, as you look up.
Hey, watch it.
Crazy, right? It's very cool.
Join us today to fight for a better tomorrow.
Very cool. So down here we have a bit of market. So there's still, you know, people still live their lives down here. Normal people still live their lives down here. And then up there, the big corpos that live a completely different life. Like, there's two cities. There's the upper city and there's the lower city. and they're completely separated. I think I'm going this way. This way is slightly unfortunate. So this street is completely buried underneath the freeway above. But I will walk down here just to see how oppressive this is for the people at the pedestrian level, right? So in this game, in Night City, quite often they put the roads on top of the pedestrians just to make things more awful for the pedestrians. So good urban design is you put the road underneath, so you put the pedestrians above and the cars below, so that if you're walking, you get the sun and the sky above you. And if you're driving in a tunnel, right? So that's good urban design. Bad urban design is what's happening here, is you put the pedestrians below and the cars above. So when you're in the car, you get the sky and the sun above, and if you're walking, you're in this perpetual darkness underneath, being like crushed by the road above. And they're doing it on purpose, by the way. Like, I'm not saying, oh, they don't understand how to design cities. No, they know how to design cities, right? They deliberately doing this to emphasize the oppression. They emphasize just how awful it is for ordinary people to live in this city, right? Look at that layering. Look at that. Like, there's pedestrians, and then there's a road, and then there's like bridges, and then there's buildings, and then more buildings. Amazing. Layers and layers and layers. We're heading across this way. There's a gang over there. Let's try not to get shot at, and also let's try not to get run over. I'm gonna jump over this road. Watch this. Oh, can't hit me. I think the implication is that that building actually had a massive tower, massive column inside it, and that's what's holding that up. I don't think this is structurally plausible, but I mean, this is the year 2077. It's possible they have some future technology, some future material that is stronger than steel. Maybe it's carbon fiber or something, I don't know, carbon nanotubes. So, like, if you have some super strong material in the future, okay, maybe you can have this massive bridge just spanning over the city like this. But with modern day materials, with the materials we have available to us, you just can't do that. Not something that big. Or if you do, then most of it would be structure, and there'd be no space inside for any offices or apartments or anything. Yeah, no, there's no way. Okay, the streetscape is awful. You just have a giant street on top of you. I don't think any real-world city does this. I think, like, at some points they did this, but I think they generally demolish this sort of thing. You know, like, when cities grow quickly, especially in like parts of Asia, maybe in parts of Africa too, when you have like really rapid population growth, sometimes you can't avoid just putting in a road where you can, because you can't do it anywhere else. Because like you need it quickly, so you can't really take your time to plan it out or to like move things around. What's going on back there? Are they shooting? Okay, they're shooting each other back there. So, you know, so then you just put the road in because you need it right now, right? But whenever the city gets more money and more time, they would remove it, and they would like work it so that, you know, maybe just raise the pedestrians and put the road underneath, just to fix things, right? Like, we don't want to do this. Sometimes we do this, not very often, but we don't really want to do this. We don't want to make the pedestrian experience so awful. Alright, continuing forward. I mean, we already have like fairly big towers, and then we have even bigger towers. Oh, there's a big glass tower back there too. We'll go take a look at that more closely as we go around. Let me just check this way. So yeah, we have like smaller towers, and then the big thing above. So as we said, Little China, the economy was growing at one point, and that would have been where these smaller towers were built, right? And then the economy tanked, and then the megacorps moved in, and the megacorps did that behind there, above, and just completely went over the top of the local economy. Alright, running across, don't get run over. Don't worry about the gunfight over there. It happens all the time. What's happening here? This building has a steel frame. Oh, I see, look at that. This building has a steel frame and then another building stacked on top of this one. That green thing up there. I mean, I appreciate that they think about the structure, right? They think about, okay, if we put a building on top of another building, it's gonna need more structure. And they actually have it, right? They have this, the brown stuff is the extra structure on top of the old building, and then the one above. So I do appreciate that they're thinking about structure and not just, you know, having buildings wherever they want. As we come over here, there's a big thing bridging over the road. So this might be for aesthetic purposes. As we walk around the city, quite often you will see at the boundaries of the districts, they would have these buildings straddling the road to block the view. And I think they did this on purpose to separate the districts, to make them more distinct, right? So here we're in Little China, and then beyond this thing, there's the river, and then on the other side is going to be the city center. Let me just walk over this way while I talk. And so this thing, it serves as a visual barrier between the character of Little China and the character of the city center on the other side. Also, look how narrow these sidewalks are. Completely hostile to pedestrians. Right, so you come through this tunnel and you can't really see anything. So it's like a gate, like a visual barrier. So you like Little China behind you. You come through this visual barrier, and then when you get across to the other side, and the glare disappears, and then it's the city center, right? So this is a different thing on this side from where you were. So like that, like why is that there, right? Why is that barrier there? And I think they do that on purpose, because if you go around, as I said, when we walk around all the other districts, we see this often again and again between the districts, and they'll just like have a more solid wall. Okay, we should go look at this thing. Let me cross the road, not get run over. Not get run over. Okay, so we're back at the water. Oh, look at that. So we have some corporate towers over here. As we come over to the western side of the district, that's the ocean out there. So we are, oh, did I say this? We're in California. We're on the coast of California. So the ocean is to the west, right? So over there to the west, there's the ocean. And on the western side of the district, there's more of these corporate towers. And over to the north, in the industrial district, there's also an Arasaka facility. So I think the corpos have taken over a strip of Little China along the water's edge, along the waterfront, and they've built their presence there, right? Or they prioritize their expansion in this direction. Anyway, we have like clean glass, very shiny, very new towers. We need to get back across now without getting run over. Alright, let me just... Alright, very cool, very cool. And then we have to get our way to the waterfront over in this direction. You will notice that this becomes a giant freeway. And pedestrians can't go that way. What's going on here? Not much. There's a big tower above us though. So you see how much newer this stuff is. And the black metal as well. Same as the black metal over on that side. Ah. So there's a certain like color scheme to this. Black metal is definitely mega corporation. Glass facade could be mega corporation or smaller corporations. And anything with color is probably like a local business.
Yeah?
Oh, there's some cops here. I need to get past them though. Can I get past them without them getting angry at me? Oh, they're gonna get angry at me.
Alright.
So back here we have a little bit of a courtyard.
Got it.
Scratch marks in the ventral area.
Alright, let me...
Neck implant's got a vector.
Oh, wrong one. What's my button? Let me press my buttons. This... Oh, don't do that. No, don't do that. Wait, it's not this button? It's not this button. What is... Not that one? Not that one? I'm so bad. I'm trying to get to my... Nope. Okay, maybe I can just like quickly dodge past these guys. Okay, there you go. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. Alright, that's fine, alright. Oh, get out of there. Okay, so back... Oh, look at that. So back here on this side, we have some smaller buildings, right? So this is old Little China down here. And then the big corporations have built giant towers there and there. And they're building over the top. Like, this is especially obnoxious here. There is a road going that way, so the road... So there's the old neighborhood, and then they built a road over the top of the old neighborhood. And then they built a mega tower on top of the road. And the mega tower, they don't really... Like, there's no connection between the two, right? It's like, the layers are completely separate. And there's no interactions between them.
Those Eddies were to get us the fuck out of here.
There's always next year.
Sure, whatever.
Wild. Alright, moving to this way. Why are there so many cops?
Exactly.
I didn't mean to press that. My bad. As we come to here, there's that tower again. There's that road going underneath the tower. And then the waterfront is over here across the road. So on the waterfront, like this would be where the real estate is worth the most money, right? You have a waterfront real estate. We have a series of slightly diagonal glass towers. Possibly apartments. And they're facing the water. So as I said, like this is where the corpos have taken over a whole line of real estate. Going in that direction, look at that. Not bad, very fancy. Very fancy, very monolithic, and I guess they do have ground floor entries down here. But you'll notice that all the smaller buildings have been removed, and it's only the big towers here. On the other side, there is a waterfront area, look at this. Oh, look how nice this is, look how clean this is. And it's fairly new as well, not much wear and tear. Unfortunately, there's basically no one here. And all the shops, I guess these would be shops, all the shops are closed and graffitied. So this is very interesting. So like it looks like the corpos have come in and they developed this place into a number of expensive towers. And the idea was that they would just take over the whole waterfront. But the waterfront is kind of abandoned, right? Even though it is quite new. So maybe this property development didn't really work out the way they imagined. And because otherwise, why would they not be down here? Or maybe the crime is just too bad. Maybe the crime rate is too high and so they never leave their towers, right? They don't come down to the street. So the idea was there'd be like a waterfront park for the corpos, but the corpos don't actually come down here because it's not safe. Maybe. And we don't know what the occupancy rate is in those buildings either. The thing is, because we are right on the edge of like corporal influence, the corporal center's back there, and this is really at the very edge of it. So if the economy turns bad, and if corporation influence starts shrinking, it would shrink from the edges first, right? So you know, like at the very edge is where you would feel the effects of the economy. And you know, in this world, the economy can fluctuate because sometimes there are wars, sometimes there are natural disasters. And in fact, as we go through the city, in a lot of places, you'll see stories, or you see architecture that reflects the history where, you know, oh, the economy is good, and so they start expanding and building new buildings, and doing a lot of new construction, and then, oh no, there's another war again. And then so the economy collapses and then all the construction stops and then everybody pulls back. And so like the economy grows and shrinks, and so the city and megacorp influence also grows and shrinks over time. So you know, like this, for example, like they thought they would grow here but they didn't, and then they shrunk back, and so then they left behind this square which is actually quite nice, but then nobody comes here and it's just graffiti and rubbish. Right, you see what I mean? Like it's you know, like they thought maybe they would do this and then it didn't work out. And that happens a lot in Night City and in Cyberpunk. Like the economy fluctuates a lot because of all these wars and other unexpected events, right? So this whole waterfront area, it's fancier than it should be. But it's because the economy is not stable. And it's not predictable. Do we need to say anything about the ocean? Not really. There's a spaceport over there. You can barely see it in the fog. We can't get into the spaceport. But the idea of it is cool. What are those? There's a bunch of flying cars over there. Alright, not much to see there. Wrong button. Not much to see there. And there's those corpo towers back there. There's a little food place here. Not that many customers though, huh? Not sure how they stay in business. Okay, let's go back across the street. So that's Konpeki Tower. We're gonna look at that later. That's over in the Arasaka waterfront, which is a different district, right? So Little China ends here, and then that's a different district. So Arasaka, one of the biggest megacorps, has established a port facility over that way. And as I said, these developments, they look like the corpos are taking over a strip of real estate along the waterfront to join up the Arasaka waterfront with the city center over there. In fact, let me just go look to the map. So here's the map. So there's the big overhanging thing above there, the bridging structure above, and then here there's tower, and then there's Arasaka waterfront there, right? So they've got like a strip of land, and then behind the strip of land, all of this is Little China, and this is contested back here. But this is not contested, right? This is fully corpo buildings only. Okay.
Don't rub me.
Going back. Nope. Oh, wrong way. Going back this way. I mean, there are some shops down here. So the economy is not completely dead, presumably. We're gonna go back this way. Alright, so our tour of Little China is pretty much done. We've had a good overview. You walk back. I mean, what's going on here? Right, so there's a big tower up there. And then once we get past the line of towers at the waterfront, we're back to smaller buildings underneath these roads, right? So Little China is a whole mix of things, as you can see. There's some shiny corpo towers, and then a lot of this is contested. Smaller buildings below and then more buildings above, straddling on top of the smaller buildings. But that's kind of interesting. Look at that. That building has a hole in the middle there. Residential apartments. A little bit fancy. Look at that. Can I? Oh, let's try not to get run over. What's back here? So there's like 2 apartment towers linked by bridging elements. Not much going on down here. So things are... Again, you can see how their ambitions didn't really work out. Like the actual conditions here don't justify the ambitions they put in. Because this building's kind of fancy, right? It's kind of got an interesting shape. Although, right across the road we have this. That's interesting, look at that. So this is an older residential apartment, and looks like there's been a lot of retrofitting going on. So you see this in Hong Kong a lot, and I guess you see it in other places too. Not sure if it's happening here. So there's balconies, and they haven't quite like... So like in Hong Kong, sometimes in older buildings you have balconies and they put up sheet metal around the balconies to turn it into a room. Here they haven't quite put in sheet metal, but they have these plastic sheets, and so I guess they become curtains and they become like a semi-indoor space. Just to get more space to live in, right? Turn the balconies into a room. Hasn't quite happened much here. But it's getting there. You can kind of tell people are thinking about it. You can kind of tell people are thinking, well, maybe if I just, you know, wall this off, I can get extra room in my house. Right, like you have this right next to big-ass towers there. So something's going on. We have very rich people and very modest people living side by side. And you're never sure which way it's going. You know, like it depends on the economy, as I said. Maybe the economy starts booming and then all the big money starts flowing in and you get gentrification like crazy. Or maybe the economy turns bad and then all the money pulls out. Right? And then you have cheap real estate. So everything hangs in the balance. What's going on here? Ramen? Shops down below. One of these older buildings. Alright, heading back across. Oh, there's that giant structure above us again. It is amazing, like it's kind of cool, right? Super cool. And then like you have towers holding it up. Very cool. We have an NCAT station. There are NCAT lines right above us. Alright, continue running this way. Heading back east. this MedCenter behind there again, and then some bridging stuff here. Oh, and there's that too, like that bridge across. Oh, I guess I'll show you this. So it's like, this is not perfect. The architecture in the game, there's some odd bits. Look at that. So there's a building there, but there's no foundations underneath here. It's just there. There's not even columns down here, right? Like, wait a minute. Hold on, there's a big ass building there. And there's no columns down here, there's a road. So structurally that's completely wrong. There's no way that's gonna happen. This thing would just collapse into the hole, right? And on this side too, there's a big ass building there. I guess this is slightly narrower here, it's less bad here. But yeah. So there are places in the game where it doesn't quite fit, but you know, you get the impression that there's one team working on the road, and then there's another team working on the buildings above, and they just sometimes they don't communicate thoroughly. You know, like a big game like this, you have a lot of people working on different parts at the same time, and sometimes people like they misread what the other guy's doing. Ah. Excuse me? I wasn't even in front of that car. Alright, let's try not to get run over again. What's this blue stuff? Why is this blue stuff there? Like, what doesn't mean anything, right? Not sure what that is. I mean, it could be to protect people below from things falling above, right? There is a monorail line up there. Oh hey, we have some older buildings here, look at that. This is brick? Oh, that's cool. So brick is... I mean, brick looks older, right? Brick... I mean, you could have new brick buildings. But generally, brick buildings feel older. Because, alright, so okay, let's talk about this. So brick, you need a guy, or a number of guys, to lay the bricks one at a time. And the thing about bricks is they're about this big, each brick. And so it's very easy to move bricks around. You don't need a lot of machinery to build a brick building. You just need a lot of guys and a lot of time, right? You kind of build this thing one brick at a time. So even relatively modest construction teams with not much equipment can build a brick house because it's, you know, the bricks are small and you don't need machinery. On the other hand, if you have like a big concrete, you might need machinery to pour the concrete, especially if it's a multi-story concrete building. You need to pump the concrete up to that floor to pour it into the formwork. And so like concrete is harder than brick, more complicated than brick in terms of construction. Like you need more machinery. But if you have the machinery and you have the equipment, then you can build the concrete house more quickly than the brick house, because the brick house, literally, you do it one brick at a time. So it's a lot of work. Whereas the concrete, you put the formwork up, you have the machine pour the concrete in, and then you let it set, and that's it. So it's faster if you have the machinery. If you don't have the machinery, you can't do it at all. And then to steel is even heavier than concrete. So you definitely need a crane to do steel work. And if you need to do any welding on site, then welding is also like a specialized skill requiring specialized equipment and tools. And so, you know, like as you go up, you require more specialized machinery and more expensive machinery. But it's more efficient, it's more time efficient to use those materials. So from brick to concrete to steel. And so brick, it's why do we say it's older? Because, you know, it's less technologically advanced and you don't need as much machinery to build it. So like if you could build a concrete building, you wouldn't build a brick building because it would be slower and more expensive that way. But if you couldn't build a concrete building, then you would build a brick building because that's what you can afford, right? Does that make sense? Anyway, so brick is more modest. It has a lower technology requirement. So it represents like, you know, cheaper, lower economic, like a lower socioeconomic class of people would build brick buildings because that's what they can afford. And then like, you know, there's like a concrete thing behind the brick thing, and then more stuff on top there. So this would be like a cheaper house and also older. What is this? This is vaguely Chinese, look at that. That little gate there. You know, like we're in Little China, but there's not much Chinese stuff in Little China. I think that's the only thing that looks vaguely Chinese down here. So, like, I mean, it's called Little China, but whatever Chinese culture was here has been kind of overridden by newer stuff over time. It's how I'm reading it, right? Because, like, you know, there's not that many brick buildings, so this is like the last remnants of the old Little China that existed a long time ago. And then everything else is just newer buildings going, look at that thing. Newer buildings going up and gentrifying all the old buildings away. Let's see, we're back at the MedCenter. I need to go through here, right? Can't get through there. Just thinking which way is the best way to go. Let's go this way. Let's make a tower 10 again. Make a building then. Come in this way. Go in this way. Try not to get attacked. Alright, through the back streets. Sometimes you see like evidence of older buildings in the back streets. Look at this. Was that brick? There's like remnants of brick structures at the bottom of the newer towers. Isn't that interesting? Interesting. I mean, what happened here, right? Like there's a brick building, and then there's like additions, and then more additions, and then more additions, and then this thing's holding up the more additions above. Things added to old stuff. Very cool. Okay, let's go over this way. So that's Little China. It's as we said, it's quite complicated, right? There's a lot of things going on. There's a whole range of people. There's some like big corporate buildings all the way back there, and then there's like smaller stuff down below. So there's a lot of different things going on, and everything's contested, I guess is the word I would use. And you get the feeling that there's a unstable equilibrium here. That at some point something's gonna give, right? Either the economy's gonna crash and all these big towers are gonna be vacant and underutilized, and then all the people down below are gonna start building up again. Or the economy is strong and there's a lot of money floods in and the whole thing gentrifies and all the poor people gets pushed out of the neighborhood and then the corporals take over. Like you kind of get the feeling that it's gonna go one way or the other, but you're not really sure. So that's Little China. It is a district in flux, a district that is contested. Next video, we are going over to the neighboring district of Watson. So over here is Little China, over there is Watson. And Watson is like Little China, except there's no corpo influence, right? So there's a big corpo towers taking over Little China, but they're not going into Watson. So, my bad, did I say Watson? No, this whole thing is Watson. Kabuki. Next time we go see Kabuki. My bad.